Gospel according to St. John.
Glory to you, Lord.
This is a time where Jesus is on trial for his life, just as the men in the story, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, were essentially on trial for their life. You find Jesus now before Pilate, and Pilate is trying to find a way to get out of having Jesus killed. And the Jewish leaders come to him and say, in their last-ditch effort to get him to condemn Jesus to death, they say, he claims that he is a king. And so Pilate asked Jesus that very question. Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not from this world. If my kingdom were from this world, my followers would be fighting to keep me from being handed over to the Jews. But as it is, my kingdom is not of here." Pilate said, "So, you are a king? You say that I am a king. For this I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. And all who believe in the truth listen to my voice." The gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
I invite you to be seated. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. That's quite a mouthful, wasn't it, Dean?
Yes, it was.
Way back in that. It's quite a mouthful. Last week we had the lesson from Jeremiah, where Jeremiah had written a letter to those who were in exile, the first part of the Babylonian exile before King Nebuchadnezzar came and totally destroyed Jerusalem and the temple. And that's the kind of king that Nebuchadnezzar was. He was, at that time, the most powerful man in what they knew of as the world at that time. And this lesson, this story that we hear in the book of Daniel, of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, comes from about the same time frame. When the first of the exiles had been taken away, and it seems that these three, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, had risen to some level of authority within their time there at Babylon. Remember, Jeremiah encouraged them to build houses, to have children, to get married, to sprout and to grow and to flourish where you're planted, because you're going to be there for a long time. It seems that these three took that to heart and did all that they could to be a part of the city of Babylon, the community of Babylon. And so they had risen to a certain level of administrative leaders of some type. But the time was not a good time for those who followed Yahweh, the God of Israel, the one God who created heaven and earth, and who created them and created us. In this time when they were living in Babylon, it was illegal to circumcise your young. Remember, that was one of the requirements that God had given to Abraham, that all Israelite male children would be circumcised on the 8th day. You couldn't do that. That was against the law there in Babylon. You could not own a Torah, the first 5 books of the Bible. And you couldn't keep the Sabbath. If you had to work on Sunday or Saturday was the Sabbath, from noon on Friday to noon, or sundown Friday to sundown Saturday was the Sabbath. If it was required of you to work, then you had to work. You had to give up that part of your faith practice. And so many other areas where King Nebuchadnezzar was taking little chunks of their faith practice and making it hard Nebuchadnezzar builds this golden statue, 30 cubits by 3 cubits. A cubit is from here to here, so about a foot and a half. I think it must have been more than 30 cubits, because it's 90 feet tall. Taller than anything here in the valley. It would be the tallest structure here in the valley. And it's only 9 feet wide, so how it stood up is, that's another question for engineers. But he builds this 90-foot tall golden statue. We don't know if it's a statue of him. Kings, powerful kings at that time used to proclaim all of a sudden that they were divine, that they were a god, and that you had to worship them. So it could have been a statue of him, or it could have been a statue of some other god that the Babylonians worshipped. So we don't know that. It doesn't really matter for the story. What matters is that all people were required to bow down to this statue. When all of those musical instruments played, that was the signal that it's time to bow down from wherever you are, from whatever you're doing, stop what you're doing and bow down and worship this 90-foot tall statue. So this story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego not kneeling down to this statue is a resistance story. Martin Luther King, in his great resistance movement of the civil rights in the 1960s, wrote a letter when he was in jail, when he was in the Birmingham jail. And I spent most of, I don't know if it was Monday or Tuesday, I think it was Monday, reading that letter. It's a long letter that Martin Luther King wrote from the Birmingham jail, but it was an incredible experience. I'm sure I had to read it in school at some point, but to read it now at this advanced age that I am, you can laugh. He's not that advanced age, right? Right. I'm not that old, right, Kathy? No. Old enough. I'm 10,000 years old. You saw in the picture. I'm 10,000 years old. Anyway, Martin Luther King Jr. and his letter from Birmingham jail. A resistance movement. A movement that changed things. Martin Luther King Jr. had come to the point in his life and in the life of African American people where he said, no more. Things have to change. Things have to stop. And he wrote this. This is just one piece of the letter. He said, of course, there is nothing new about this kind of civil disobedience. He's writing in response to a letter that Christian pastors in Birmingham had written to him about kind of chilling out. Let things take a little more time. Don't be so hasty in your nonviolent protests. And he's writing in response to these folks. And so he says, of course, there is nothing new in this kind of civil disobedience, his nonviolent civil disobedience. It was evident sublimely in the refusal of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego to obey the laws of Nebuchadnezzar on the ground that a higher moral law was at stake. It was practiced superbly by the early Christians who were willing to face hungry lions and excruciating pain of chopping blocks rather than submit to certain unjust laws of the Roman Empire. This letter that Martin Luther King read for me was mind-blowing, and it showed me how little progress we've made since 1963 when he wrote that letter. go back 2,600 years from Martin Luther King Jr. They had this to say to old King Nebuchadnezzar, the mightiest person in the time when he's trying to force them to bow down to this 90-foot idol. He's trying to remove from them the ability to live by the first commandment. What's the first commandment? No other gods before me, right? So what is King Nebuchadnezzar trying to do? Get them to bow down before another god. And they said, "Oh, Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to present a defense to you in this matter. If our God, Yahweh, the creator of the world, the one God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the furnace of blazing fire and out of your hand, O king, let him deliver us." Civil disobedience, that they're putting their lives on the line. They have come to the point where they've said, "You've taken away this, and you've taken away this, and you've taken away this from us, but here is the line." It's not a line in the sand anymore. It's a line that we're going to stand with our very lives. Cannot make us worship your false God. But look at what they say next. But if not, you see, they're not 100% sure going into this that God is going to deliver them from this fiery furnace. But if not, if God doesn't deliver us from this fiery death, be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods, and we will not worship the golden statue that you have set up. Once again, they make this stand for what they know is right, for what they know the difference between right and wrong. And they've been giving up so much, and now they take this stand and say, "No more." How far are we willing? Well, there's a picture missing. Oh well. How far are we willing to go in selling out our faith? Have we been selling out our faith over the last many years? I think that's a personal question. I'll let you worry about that. But at what point do we say enough is enough? As individuals and as a church. At what point do we say enough is enough? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego found that place. They found their limit in giving up and giving in, and they said, "No more. We will stand and we will trust the God of gods, the one God that we know has all power and might." And they say, "No more." Will there come a time in our lives, as the world continues to turn and continues to change, and it seems like it gets harder and harder to be a Christian, will there come a point where we need to say, "No more"? We stand with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and we say, "No more." Certainly Martin Luther King came to that place where he had to say, "No more." But he didn't talk in that letter just simply about the civil disobedience. A lot of the letter was about his being disappointed in the moderate white churches. And we've been talking about different prophets: Daniel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, Amos. We've talked about the different prophets. And I think Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a prophet. He was a prophet in his time because he told the truth of what he saw, what God inspired him to write. And look at what he writes about churches in that time. But the judgment of God is upon the church as never before. If today's church does not recapture the sacrificial spirit of the early church, it will lose its authenticity, forfeit the loyalty of millions, and be dismissed as an irrelevant social club with no meaning for the 20th century. Every day I meet young people whose disappointment with the church has turned into outright disgust. He wrote that in 1963. In what shape were churches like this when Lutheran, moderate, white churches? We were in pretty good shape then, right? They were thinking about building this building in 1963. They were worshiping over in Magnuson Hall, but it was bursting at the seams. And our forefathers, and even some of them sitting here today, looking at three of them, thought we needed a bigger building because God was blessing us so much with people coming to worship. But Martin Luther King Jr. had a prophetic word for churches. The story of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego is ultimately a story of hope. For them, it was a story realized as the angel delivered them from the flames and the heat of the furnace. Hope realized for them. 2,000 years after Christ, 54 years after Martin Luther King Jr., this same story is a message of hope for the future. That our lives and our church is in the hands of a great God. The one who can deliver Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the furnace, who can deliver Jonah from the whale, who can deliver Noah from the waters of the flood, who can deliver Daniel from the lion's den, and Mary and Joseph from scorn and shame and ridicule to Bethlehem. That God can deliver us. Amen. Let's stand and sing together.